To get out is clearly to swim, but that's risky because some of the kids don't know how to swim, and it would take several days to teach them how to use the dive equipment. But if for some reason they decide to swim their way out, the boys would each be guided by 2 professional divers, though even Thailand's elite divers, the Navy divers, found it difficult to move through the muddy waters and the tight passageways. In fact, some of the channels in those caverns are so narrow that only one person at a time can fit through. And that means for portions of the trip out, the boys would be on their own. Watch this.
It's confined spaces. It's almost zero visibility. There's currents to battle against in places as well. So it's a really quite a strenuous environment to be in.
The question then becomes how these boys handle stress, because experts say if any of them get into these small passageways and they panic, that could be life-threatening. Now, if they decide to stay inside the cave and sit tight, stay there for the rainy season, that means not getting out until October. They would certainly have supplies and light and communications, but more rain might mean moving to higher ground. And right now, they're about 2.5 miles in and a half mile down. A third option is to find another entrance into the cave or drill a brand new entrance, but the area out there is solid rock, and that in itself would take substantial time. Now, some of the boys have suffered minor injuries, but for the most part, they're all healthy and are now being given a high-protein liquid diet along with pain medication and antibiotics. They have also brought in a phone line so the boys can talk to their families. The boys, as you might imagine, are aware that the eyes of the world are now on them, and as you have seen from the video, they are all still in their soccer uniforms. They're scared in many instances, but we're told they're in good spirits, and we expect a decision on a rescue plan to happen sometime in the next 12 to 24 hours. Dana.
All right. Thank you, Trace, for that update. We appreciate it. We'll take it around the table here just because, Jason, it is remarkable to think that, one, they're all okay, but staying there is difficult, and leaving might be even worse, and they might have to wait till October to get out.
This is one of those heart-wrenching stories because there are parents and families and these kids, they're together. They just went to play soccer and they go dive into this, look through this cave, and next thing you know, they're fighting for their lives. There's 2 Thai doctors, I heard, that are going to have volunteered to go in and sit with them and be with them and offer comfort. But this is one of those moments where the whole world is watching and praying and hoping that they somehow figure out a way, because this is not an easy one. They're pumping out something like 1.6 million liters of water, and it only went down 1 centimeter. So the water's coming in faster than millions of liters that they're trying to pump out, and it's a scary situation.
These boys are the same age as your son, Kimberly. They're healthy, they're athletes, and so they have some resilience, and they also probably have pretty good attitudes, it sounds like, by all accounts. I mean, you can relate.
Yeah, I really can relate. So I think it's just, it's so sad. I just feel for them and for their families, that they're trapped like this. I mean, the only thing I can say is that, thanks be to God that they have each other, right? That it's just not like 1 or 2 little boys of that age, because, you're at that age, you're about to go into kind of like puberty or adolescence, etc. But, they're still children. And you can imagine if it was like little girls in there, etc. So I'm really happy that the U.S. is putting forth such a concerted effort to be able to help. And we're always the first to answer the call in terms of, humanitarian relief or rescue efforts like this. I mean, this is just kind of a very good example of, what we do best, and it's reaching out, to others in need with whatever resources. So I think people should pray for them, and hopefully, this is going to, work out really well. Obviously, a lot of people trying to work together cooperatively to produce a very favorable result here. And so, hopefully that's going to happen very soon.
It is amazing, Juan, what rescuers can do, what they can figure out.
Well, first and foremost to me is just the facts on the ground. I mean, the idea is these young men, 11 to 16, had no food for 10 days. No food. So the expectation was that some of them may have died away or something, but instead what we know is they're suffering from muscle atrophy. Some of them can't stand for lack of food. Now they're starting to put food in, to send food in, and the doctors, as Jason was saying, are there to try to help them not only get accustomed to consuming solid food, but instruct them in terms of how to get their bodies working again. The second thing that amazes me is that in this age of political polarization, here you have an international community. You have the English, the Americans, the Chinese, the Australians, as well as the Thai, all working together. Nobody's finger pointing, nobody's complaining. Everybody says, hey, that's a group of children, as Kimberly was saying, and we're going to help them. We're going to get involved and do what's right. So the thing that, of course, as a human being you're struck by is nobody knew the kids were missing until one mom said, hey, my son didn't come home. And then it's like the world woke up and said, hey, where are those boys? And so the boys had walked 1.2 miles into the cave, right? So they walk into the cave before the flooding prevents them from coming out. Now, I don't know, I read a book once, it was a novel, it was about spelunking, which is people who go into caves and explore. So here, I mean, for me, I would be like freaked out to go into some dark cave, but it was daytime apparently. They walk in and they don't realize how far they've gone or how narrow the exit is, and it's the exits then that flood and prevent them from getting out. And now even the pro divers are saying, you have mud in the water. So even if you are a tough professional diver, you can't see. You don't know where you're going.
And there's a guy, Tom, one of the cave divers, who said that it is roughly 1.5 miles to get there, but it took them 4 hours to go through the water in that mud.
It's single file. They kind of come through and then they have their equipment on, but they can't see anything. Great summer reading, Shadow Divers, a great book, and it talks about these guys are superheroes, these divers. People who go into this kind of rescue. It's an amazing story. I love looking at all the detail. Obviously, you know, they're in danger, but I think these kids are going to be okay. They have top people on it. If you want to read a great book over the summer, Shadow Divers, it talks about how dangerous it is. It's about people who, you know, these divers who do this life-risking kind of dives. These people who dive into it's so dangerous. I mean,
but I mean,
scuba
they
diving,
do it because they're trying to save people, or because it's fun?
Well, there's also it covers all the diving world. These guys off the coast of Jersey who do it recreationally, but also a lot of these guys, they do recreational dives and they go down looking for treasure. But in their spare time, they're always ready to help in situations like that.
I want to just mention, Dana, before we go on, that one of the more interesting developments that's come out of this is the international response about the use of social media to talk about this incident. That there's great awareness that other children are going to be interested in the fact that children are trapped within. And so people are being told, be careful what you say about these young people. This is not a time to go after the young men for going into the cave. It's not a time to belittle them for being in the cave, or to wonder why they were there, or why the 25-year-old coach took them in there. You know what? We don't need it.
Well, Jason, one thing I was thinking about, because you're from Utah, and I'm from Colorado, Wyoming, and a lot of those areas there, you could get yourself into a situation, especially in Utah, like in Zion Canyon, where you might think that it's pretty fun to go down this little trail, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, there's water up to your chin.
We have slot canyons. Out west, we got a lot of abandoned mines. People think, hey, it's fun, let's go into this. We do have a lot of caves and cave networks there between Nevada and Utah and Colorado and Wyoming. One of the things I can't get over what these kids are dealing with is how dark it is.
I know.
I mean, I go into my closet and don't have a light on, and I'm like,
freaked out.
And truly, imagine how dark it was, because they were 9 days in there before they figured out that they were alive. 9 days, and it had to be pitch black. I mean, their lights were only working for so long, if they even had much with them. And now they've got this hard decision, right? What do you do? Do you try to teach a kid to swim? Do you put a mask on them? Do you wait it out and hope that Mother Nature doesn't pour more water into that cave? They have some heart-wrenching decisions.
We hope that everything turns out okay. Of course, God gives you what you need in order to get through it, and I'm sure they're very serene at the moment. I mean, they seem like it in the pictures. They have guidance, and they've been raised very well, so we will keep you updated on that. But now, coming up, the latest on the Supreme Showdown over President Trump's pick for the highest court in the land. We'll be right back.
Clock's ticking. We're less than a week away from President Trump announcing his Supreme Court nominee. We've just learned the president has interviewed an additional 3 potential candidates today, bringing to 7 the total number of people he has met, to consider or interview for the job. The White House is pushing back against mounting pressure from Democrats who vow to oppose the president's pick.
Look, I think that's the Democrats' message right now, which is oppose everything and do nothing. It's frankly gotten really sad that their party has no message, no leadership, no solutions, and they want to fight a president who's trying to lead and who's doing amazing things for our country and things that are really hard to argue with.
Democrats' biggest concern is the fear that Roe v. Wade could be reversed. But a Wall Street Journal op-ed in today's paper argues that the abortion ruling will stand. Here's their explanation. Here I'm quoting for you. The liberal line is always that Roe hangs by a judicial thread, and one more conservative justice will doom it. Yet Roe still stands. After nearly 5 decades, no one on Mr. Trump's list of nominees will claim to want to overturn Roe, and that's not because they're lying. In their caution and deference to precedent, they will be showing proper conservative respect for the law and the reputation of the court. Dana, what do you make of that? That wasn't an op-ed, that was an unsigned editorial.
Yeah, it was the Wall Street Journal editorial. I thought that it was fantastic. I'm a big fan of that editorial page. And because they lay things out very calmly and logically, and they don't let emotion run away with the spoon, or the dish that runs away with the spoon. I think that even if they are correct, that doesn't mean that the Democrats won't use it. So, for example, in the Roberts and Alito nominations, when I was a spokesperson for them, that was the immediate accusation that either one of them was going to be the deciding vote that would overturn Roe v. Wade. And as the Wall Street Journal pointed out, that is not true. It also doesn't mean necessarily that even if there was a case that makes its way up through the Supreme Court and there's a decision, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden there is no right to have an abortion in the United States. It means that the states will then talk to the people and decide what they would want to do. Some states are very liberal in their abortion laws where they can be outside of this Roe v. Wade. Some states are super conservative, and there will be a debate on the merits. The concern about Roe v. Wade was that the argument was made that it wasn't decided by the people, it was judges making law. And that's why you see conservatives so frustrated about this idea that judges come in and interpret the Constitution in a way that the Founding Fathers didn't intend. That's where the rub will be. I'm not saying that we won't have a big argument and debate about Roe v. Wade. We will. But I do think that people are being needlessly emotional about it. And if you think about this, just the facts and the logic, it is not as dire as they think.
Well, I would think the counter from the Democrats would be that the Wall Street Journal editorial page, which is a terrific editorial page, but clearly conservative, Tom, wants to take this issue off the table. And in fact, President Trump has repeatedly said he intended to appoint judges who would overturn Roe v. Wade.
Well, he's going to appoint conservative judges. Think about the editorial. Obviously, they are probably correct. However, I'm not sure. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I have a lot of country common sense. And I don't know what the deal is with judicial precedent. If a judicial decision is wrong, they should overturn it. So I don't know why we have the reputation of the court to worry about. I'm worried about the reputation of the country, of the laws. You know, if a law has been, there's an unjust law, it doesn't matter how long it's been on the books, we're going to vote to overturn it. We should overturn unjust laws. If there's an unjust judicial decision, we should overturn it. It shouldn't be precedent. I don't care about their reputation.
It was an interesting conversation because, I mean, if you look back at something like Plessy v. Ferguson, which I think is 1896, which said separate but equals the law of the land, that had to be overturned in 54 by Brown. The alternate explanation, though, Jason, is that Americans prize stability in the law. And it's not a function of politics of what's popular one moment and not popular the next, but that we are a nation based on law. And once there's settled law, leave it alone.
But the court does have discretion as to what they have before them. So there needs to be a case that actually piques their interest to the point where they actually decide to hear that case and make a landmark decision. And there are things that have stood for 40, 50, 60 years that they've overturned. I mean, most recently, they tackled if you have to pay union dues and whatnot. Look, my preference, I really like is Senator Mike Lee. I think that the number one question for the president is who can get 51 votes in the United States Senate. And one of the senators probably has the best chance of doing that. I also think this Judge Amy Barrett has a great shot out of the Seventh Circuit. She's already been through this. She was already confirmed by the Senate. She's already heard those questions. We know what her answers are. And she's got a great reputation on the Seventh Circuit. So Democrats have already made up their mind. They haven't even picked who it is, and they've already signaled, we're going to vote no matter what. So, okay, then let's play that game and just put it up for a vote.
Yeah.
Who can get 51?
So, Kimberly,
Yes.
I was very interested today to read in several papers the Democrats' alternative strategy. Clearly, they don't have the votes to stop this, right? So the alternative strategy would be, one, that if the Democrats ever regain power, expand the court
Add
so that there are more
justices.
people on the court. Another possibility would be to say, we're not going to have a vote in the way that Senator McConnell, the majority leader, Republican majority, said, we're not having a vote on Merrick Garland. Just say, we're not having a vote if the Democrats ever regain or can stall this vote for the moment. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I think they should put it up for a vote fair and square. It's not like the end of, his presidential term. This is, he won the election fair and square. And one of the things he campaigned on was that he was going to put and select conservative justices to be able to serve on the Supreme Court. He's done that with Neil Gorsuch. He intends to do it again. I think a lot of times there's a lot of, hyperbole about Roe v. Wade and people saying, oh, this is going to overturn and this and that. Fact of the matter is, as he said, even in the interview with Maria Bartiromo, that's not one of the questions that he's going to ask as a prerequisite. But I think, common sense would tell you that if he picks a conservative judge, that they're going to be strict, constitutionalists, follow the law, not worry about political popularity on the court.
All right. So, by the way, Michael Moore getting in the conversation about the Supreme Court pick. He says he's going to have 1 million people surround the U.S. Capitol to prevent confirmation of any Trump pick. What do you
preposterous.
Say? Preposterous, says Dana
Yes.
Perino. What do you say, Jason?
It would probably take 1 million people to get all the way around Michael Moore, but...
What do you say, Kimberly?
Obstructionist. I mean,
Obstructionist.
go back to...
Tom, are you going to go down to D.C. and be one of the million?
Well, what are they going to do? Link hands and not let people through? It's like a big game of Red Rover?
I don't know. Could
How do you prevent a vote?
Red Rover said you're not...
Red Rover sent Michael Moore right over.
Calm down, folks.
Yeah. The Trump administration is scrapping an Obama-era policy encouraging the use of race in college admissions to promote diversity. The move comes as the Justice Department is investigating whether Harvard is illegally discriminating against Asian American students by holding them to a higher standard in its admissions process. The administration revived the probe last year after Obama civil rights officials dismissed a similar complaint. Okay, Jason, what do you make of this?
I just want the best students, the best kids who are working the hardest, doing the best in school. They're well-rounded. The idea that you're selecting people on race, it's never rung true to me because there's a consequence to who doesn't get selected. Now, in the case of Harvard, it's tough. It's so different in the world. I read 40,000 applicants and only 1,600 kids get in, and that there were a number of Asian students that were being scored lower because they thought they had certain attributes just because they were Asians. I mean, I hate the direction of that. But I hope at some point as a country we get past this idea that is going to be a determining factor. Let the best kids rise up. Diversify geographically, I think, is a good way to partly do it, but I just don't like the direction of some of this. And I think what Trump is doing is the right thing.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Dana, what's your opinion?
Well, this would restore George W. Bush era regulations, and President Obama had a different point of view, and he took action through executive administrative action, which is allowed, but it's also allowed for the next administration, if it disagrees, to rescind it. And that is what they're doing. I do think that this case against Harvard that the Justice Department is looking at is very interesting because it's not just happening in Harvard, but across the country, especially in California. There are many families, Asian families, who are saying we are being penalized and it's unfair and it should be on merit. And I understand the idea behind encouraging the diversity, but I don't think that the policies have been working. So it probably won't be that I shouldn't say. I don't know what's going to happen with it, and I think Juan has a much better perspective on it just because of his interest in education. But the Asian American students pushing back against this, I think, has opened up a different angle on it.
Yeah, it certainly has. Okay, Juan. So obviously you're a great, I would say, student and educator regarding education policy and school choice and all the above. So this is a really fascinating area, of the law and seeing the evolution over time.
Well, I mean, obviously, you have a situation in this country where you have a disproportionate representation of who gets into America's colleges and universities. It's still more than half of white people are able to graduate from these schools, and I think it's like 20% of blacks. And it's been climbing on the basis of affirmative action efforts. Now, we can go all the way back to Bakke, where the court said race was a legitimate issue for an admissions team to consider. Given that you could say that there was a community interest in having a diverse body of students to give you a good education in a diverse country. And we've seen the courts then come back and say you got to narrowly tailor any consideration of race, because under the 14th Amendment, you can't discriminate on the basis of race in America. So any kind of consideration of race has to be very specific. And so we've had 2 or 3 cases on this. One comes out of Texas, where if you're in the top 10% of your high school class, you can automatically go to the University of Texas. We had a white student complain about that. Then we had before that, we had the University of Michigan case. And again, the court said there's a compelling interest to have diversity. I think this
that's the standard that they have to
that you
use.
have a compelling interest.
Right.
Now, I think that what we're seeing here is politics playing, and I fear racial politics, which is, I think that if you don't get into Harvard, guess what? You get into Yale or Princeton or Brown. At that level, you're playing the game, right? But to say, oh, I didn't get in because that black kid got in, or because that woman got in, or the Asian kid got in, I think that's a lot of hooey, but it's part of our politics, and right now there's a lot of resentment out there on just that basis.
This is what I would want conservatives to do, who want to argue against programs like this. A story I covered that happened actually in Canada last week, but it applies to the United States. A high school, there was something called the Black List. The principal was caught putting students of color on a list and tracking their achievement. The students found out they were on the list and they were mortified. These were good students. But the principal did this out of some kind of liberal idea of, oh, I want to make sure that these students of color are exceeding, are doing well in school. The thing is, they didn't like being on the list. They were humiliated by it. And they said, how am I going to tell people that I want to be judged not on my skin color, but on my grades? I think conservatives have to argue that point instead of saying, oh, white people are being hurt here, or Asians. Look at the students of color and saying, do you want to be on a list and given preferential treatment? I think in many cases not.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's a good case. Now, the issue then, Tom, is what is merit? Because a lot of people will say, let's just have a meritocracy. But of course, we know that things like
selection.
That if you are Juan Williams' kid, you're going to go to the best schools. You're going to get SAT prep courses. You're going to get the summer experiences that allow you to write on your resume, we went on a trip to a foreign country and I had this experience. The question then becomes, are we in fact, without regard for race, simply cementing that the upper class gets to send its kids to the best
I know
schools?
we have to run, but 60 Minutes did that piece on Princeton and how he has decided that the chancellor there has said, let's try something different, and rather than it be on race, it's on income. So the diversity there is on income, and it's been a pretty successful program.
Which is that's more in keeping with what you're saying in terms of the socioeconomic background of someone, to say that they have more advantages. I mean, that makes common sense.
Right, because they can't do all the extracurricular activities if they have to work a second job and not do all those things. And so I think it's worthwhile.
Or have the resources to travel somewhere, like Ron said, to make an amazing school essay. All right. Left-wing politicians wage war on plastic. The latest Big Brother crackdown. That's next.
Yogi is confident. But when it comes to mortgages, he's less confident. Sweet. Call one today. Are you in good hands?
Looking for a plastic straw to sip your soda? If you're in Seattle, you are out of luck. The Emerald City is the first major U.S. city to ban restaurants from giving plastic straws and utensils to customers unless somebody specifically requests one. Liberals claim the move will reduce waste and prevent marine plastic pollution. But I got to tell you, when I go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, if I don't have a spork to eat my mashed potatoes, I am not going to be a happy guy.
Oh my gosh, those are so good, right? It's like
A spork is a great invention, and it's made of
invention.
plastic. A true spork is actually plastic.
I just used a spork at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You did go to. Did you go to Kentucky Fried Chicken?
You don't know Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Oh, well, let's go.
Obviously.
A week
But wait a
ago.
minute, is the spork a straw? What are you talking about?
I
There's
love
No,
something
he's
in-
talking about
Plastic
utensils. It's not just the
and
straws.
straws.
It's
It
utensils.
happens to be
Oh,
that
okay.
there are like 500 million straws that are used on a daily basis.
Yeah.
There's a lot of straws going out the door. But
And they're
Kimberly,
It's like
what do you think of this?
You know, it all depends. Like you get the different utensil things, like in hospitals or Kentucky Fried Chicken, but apparently it's a problem with the plastic, depending if things are not, disposed of properly, and it can be an issue whether if it's like dumped in water with marine life or birds, or you get a lot of that type of thing.
Then
or at the
fine them for
park.
littering. Fine them for
Oh,
littering.
you can do that too, but I'm just saying that there's,
Wait a
supporters
second.
in
It's
that
not.
sense.
It's not biodegradable, So I mean, what you got? I mean, I was astounded to realize there's more plastic in the ocean than fish. That's absurd.
There are paper straws. You probably use them.
Yeah.
You just
The
have to
ones
drink
agree.
it fast. You can't leave that straw in there the whole time. I was poking fun of this issue, but then I had someone call in my radio show, and she said, Tom, disabled people need straws, and so the restaurants and bars have to keep them in there anyway. And I said, oh, that's a good point.
But do you think that the government should have to mandate this? I mean, isn't this sort of micromanaging?
Well, I don't like that the government mandates anything. I'm not for that. But I am for innovation. And I think that this problem that we have of the plastic pollution, and I do think that it's real. I know some people say, oh, it's just a tiny amount. You see these things floating in the ocean. Remember I did the one more thing that I said President Trump should send the flotilla, and that he would be loved by everyone in the world if they broke up and cleaned up that huge. It's like an island of plastic trash in the ocean. But I think that this is great for innovation. So imagine some young enterprising person finds a way to make a paper straw that will last a little bit longer so that it won't get all soggy in there. Or a spork that not a wooden one that's going to break apart, but something that is biodegradable but that is still usable. I mean, we're making great innovations. This is an amazing time to be alive with all this technology and the ways that we can make good new products that can help sustain us going forward. So I'm for the free market helping to solve this problem. I don't mind if any restaurant chooses on their own not to do it.
Versus
I don't think
mandating
that the
it,
government
regulating.
telling you to do it actually helps, because it makes you want to go get a plastic straw.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to carry one. I don't want to have to bring it with me.
No, but I think that.
Well, just get a metal one. You just put a metal one in your pocket like you would a pen, and you can then you use it.
Then you go through the TSA line and you're pulling out your utensils, and they're not going to let
It's
you.
like the least you can do for the planet.
Yeah, well, all the things that are going on in the world, do you think,
Yes.
Juan, that this is what we have to do?
Yes.
I wish we would do it. I agree with you. I mean, if you said priorities, obviously I might have some other priorities because I think humans are really important and we want to make sure that humans have a chance. But part of that is if we are mucking up the planet to the level where, you can't go swimming, no place is pretty, we're drilling everywhere, we got
And also, it's not
plastic.
really as much. I mean, America has a problem, but you know where this is a huge problem? It's in China. And China is not going to. So that's why I'm saying if there could be a free market alternative where somebody invents a product that works, then we should do that and sell a whole bunch of them to China.
Tom, you got
without
an
tariffs.
invention in your pocket there?
Well, I like the paper straws I've
He's got a
used.
straw.
I think you just can't leave it in too long. But most people don't need straws. They put them in too much. So I don't want the cities to ban them, but I think maybe there are too many straws. I don't use
suck.
straws. I don't need them. I think most adults don't. Maybe kids need a straw, but you can lift up the drink.
Little accordion ones that the kids love.
Yes.
I like a straw. I do.
You do.
You like a good straw.
I like a straw. I do, but isn't it McDonald's is working on new paper type ones that don't get all soggy?
Yes, and it's
I like the crazy straws. You go and you get a crazy straw and the little.
Yeah.
Oh, we heard that you used one in the cloakroom when you were a member of Congress.
I'm
Did you really?
eerily fascinated. No, I didn't do that.
Did the taxpayers pay for this?
No. I was not using a crazy straw in the cloakroom. Let's move on.
It sounds believable.
We got to hear from Professor Tom, because before you hit the road for your 4th of July holiday, Tom's going to share his advice on how to behave this summer. Get ready to take some notes. Get that pen out. Tom's up next.
It's the eve of the 4th of July, and that probably means your celebrations are about to begin or have already started. No judgment, but I want to make sure your festivities are both entertaining and safe. So I'm offering some unsolicited advice on how to have the best summer possible. Number 1, get out there and experience nature. There's nothing more sublime than seeing a wild animal up close, but don't get too close. Behind you. Sharks.
Oh my gosh.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I
when
would
you
not do that.
Feed
I mean,
sharks.
now that is just
No, thank you.
That was described as a shocking video. Not too shocking. Sharks attack when you try to feed them. Number 2, cool off. Spend some quality time at the lake or pool, but don't make any grand entrances.
No, that looks like fun. That looks like fun.
Yeah. And number 3, enjoy patriotic fireworks displays from a safe distance, but don't do this.
Seriously, don't do that. Like, really don't do that.
Really? Yeah, I'm serious. Basically, don't be an idiot. It's amazing, I have to say it, but every summer people find new and exciting ways to injure themselves. So what do you say, America? The less time you spend in the hospital this summer, the more time you'll have for barbecue. Speaking of which, take a look at this. We put in our requests via email. I didn't think they would actually deliver the goods.
I didn't either, but I'm very happy with my shredded chicken.
Oh my God.
So people were poking fun of. Was it Jason? Were you poking fun of Danish? She said, "What's your favorite barbecue?"
No.
Dana said.
No, he was on my side.
I said whatever Dana's for, I'm for. I'm a politician
That's always,
here, so
that's always
Megan.
a good answer.
It was Megan who was making
No, the
fun.
producer. She thought I was being fun of me. But she took it back because obviously it's delicious.
Hey, Tom,
I'm
did
really
that woman
hungry.
get hurt with the shark?
Yeah, she broke her finger, but she thought she lost her finger, but she didn't. She is fine. Yes, I mean,
Yeah, she's interviewing. She's fine. So now I'm going to just pick this up because this is getting very exhausting cutting this with a fork and knife. You know you can do that, right?
KG,
These are plastic forks. I hope I don't get fined for
Yeah, you
this.
said you
Fox
could.
is probably
Yeah,
going to get fined for
Probably.
plastic forks.
I got the ribs.
So ribs, is that the definitive barbecue? I said brisket. To me, I love a good.
Don't you think it's the most traditional?
Yes.
I guess, yeah, most people.
Thank you.
I just think that. Am I wrong? But brisket is it a finer cut of?
I like brisket too.
meat?
I like a brisket.
But maybe you're
Brisket is
fancy.
beef. It
Maybe
is
you're
beef.
just fancy.
That's why I'm a beef guy.
Virgil's does some pretty nice barbecue. I haven't eaten lunch in like 2 weeks because Aaron Landers left. So
Now,
this is
I have
delicious.
I do have a summertime suggestion. If everybody wants to make
Mine
their
is
summer
amazing.
a little bit more fun, I think every year, no matter your age, wherever, you should get on a slip and slide. That you can't.
No matter your
you can't-
age. Are you
can't-
kidding
You
me?
can't get on a slip and slide without laughing.
Is that
and
after you've had barbecue?
Yeah, it'd be better actually after you have maybe put a little barbecue sauce in there and just let her rip. Get down there.
This is your
just like a
granddaughter's
hot
first 4th of July.
That's right.
Are you excited?
I know, can believe our grandpa. Yeah, I did. I had the honor of taking her on our very first swim. We happen to have a pool at our house, and she liked it. It helped that the pool was like 90 degrees, and we got the special diapers so that there was no
Oh my God, please.
added excitement to the
That's
pool.
awesome.
Yeah.
while
And
we're eating.
took her on a little swim.
You do slip and slides out there in Utah?
Oh, I love slip
Isn't
and
it kind
slide.
of rocky?
Kinda
Don't you
crazy
need a
out
nice?
there. They
Yeah.
get crazy.
I've always found the slip and slides have you really have to clean the ground before you do it. Otherwise,
It'll hurt.
Oh, you get all ripped up on the slip and slide when there's rocks under.
Just part of the
Jason, can I-
fun. Listen,
We
to
had
you,
to
like-
make our own
Can I
slip and
use your
slide
napkin?
out of plastic trash bags.
I have a slip inside my backyard.
Juan, are you distancing yourself from your barbecue? You're not digging in here.
I find eating on television not the best, but I'm
sorry.
interested.
We're definitely not related.
I'm interested in 2 aspects of your story, Professor Tom.
Yes.
One is that as a kid growing up, I loved fireworks, and I would see people get injured with fireworks all the time. So in reading about this topic, the one thing that stood out to me was how often people get injured, and not only injured, but sometimes killed by fireworks.
Blow off thumbs and stuff.
Yeah, they blow off their hands, their heads, all kinds. But even sparklers, which people give to little kids, to hold because it's so
Can be dangerous.
it's like 2,000 degrees hot. So if you touch it to somebody's jacket or dress, it's up in flames.
I will tell you that Provo has one of the best freedom festivals on the face of the planet. And one year, I think it was back in the 90s, they were going to explode 1 million firecrackers. The problem was they all went off at the same time.
like a
it was
bomb.
a major incident. Yes, it was a major
Did anybody
disaster.
get hurt?
Yes, people got hurt, but they get tens of thousands of people into the LaVell Edwards Stadium, and it'll be a great one this year. But back in the 90s, you thought it would go one at a time? No, all million firecrackers went off at one time.
You know one of the best places to spend the 4th of July?
Where?
Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, because they do a big, I think they still do it. When I was a kid, they did it. The fireworks behind the faces.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
You know, obviously, you want to stay safe around the holidays. The problem usually has to do with combining alcohol and whatever fun you're having. You shouldn't drink before you barbecue. Obviously, no drinking and driving. Yeah, no hair.
I would go out like a Roman
because no
candle.
hairspray and fireworks, of course.
By the way, what you just said is really
I'd
important
look like
point.
the liberals' hair on fire. I'd be floating.
That's really important, which is the number one cause of injuries on the 4th of July. Driving.
Yes.
And people are drinking and driving.
A serious issue, no drinking and driving, and it's unfortunately most of the people hurt in those accidents are people who get hit by a drunk driver, so don't do it. Okay, one more thing's up next.
Oh my God, it's my team.